Think about, the smartest, most technically gifted person you know,
Right. Yeah.
like the brilliant coder, or maybe a genius financial analyst, or, I don't know, an architect who can basically see a building in 4
Oh,
dimensions.
totally. We all know someone like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now consider this. Researchers who have spent like decades analyzing professional and personal outcomes, they found something really surprising.
Yeah. The data is wild on this.
It really is.
Hmm.
They found that those brilliant technical skills, they account for a maximum of maybe 15% of their ultimate success.
Just 15%.
Right. And the other 85%. Well, it all comes down to this silent, invisible language that most of us don't even realize we're speaking.
It's a staggering statistic, honestly. I mean, when you look at the underlying data from the source material we're looking at today,
Yeah.
the parameters they used were just incredibly rigorous. They weren't just, looking at who got promoted the fastest.
Right. It was much broader than that.
Exactly. They were looking at sustained financial success, leadership trajectory, and holistic life satisfaction over time.
Right.
And time again, the data just converged on this one concept, this idea of human engineering.
Right. Human engineering. And I think it's vital we define what that means right out of the gate for this deep dive.
Yes, definitely.
Because, that phrase can immediately trigger a defensive reaction in people. It sounds kind of Machiavellian.
It sounds like manipulation, like you're pulling the strings of the people around you or something.
Exactly. But from diving into this massive stack of texts today, which spans nearly a century of research on human behavior, psychology, all that stuff,
Right.
it becomes super clear that this is actually the exact opposite of manipulation.
How so? For the listener who might be skeptical.
Well, manipulation is coercing someone into doing something against their own best interest.
Right, exactly.
But human engineering, at least in this context, it's about removing the friction in human interaction. It's about connecting.
Precisely. And, if you look at it through the lens of evolution psychology, we are fundamentally social animals.
Sort of.
For hundreds of thousands of years, our survival literally depended on group cohesion.
Right. You couldn't survive alone.
No, not at all. If you were like a hominid wandering the savannah and you couldn't read the nonverbal cues of your tribe, you were exiled.
And exile basically meant death.
Exactly. So our brains are hardwired at this deeply biological level to constantly scan our environment.
Yeah.
We're constantly scanning the people in it, subconsciously asking, am I safe? Are you a threat? Do you understand me?
That I trust you.
Exactly. Can I trust you?
Which brings us to the core mission of today's deep dive. We've synthesized this mountain of research to basically extract a unified toolkit for you, the listener.
And this isn't just theory, right?
No, not at all. We're looking at the exact mechanics of how to communicate better, how to build genuine influence, and really forge meaningful connections.
And the crazy part is it all starts in this terrifyingly narrow window of time.
Right. I mean, we've all heard the old saying that first impressions matter.
Sure.
But the research isolates exactly how fast the amygdala, which is, the brain's threat detection center,
Yeah.
how fast it processes a stranger.
And it's fast.
Very fast.
Yeah.
We don't have 5 minutes to warm someone up. The texts say we have 90 seconds.
Wow.
And in many cases, significantly less than that.
Yeah, I mean, the visual processing speed of the human brain is just astonishing.
Yeah.
Before you've even, cleared your throat to say hello, a whole cascading series of judgments has already been made about you.
It's almost intimidating.
It is. But your posture, your microexpressions, your gait, they are all broadcasting this continuous stream of data.
Right.
And the texts introduce this foundational concept here that dictates the quality of that data. Basically, your attitude precedes you.
Your attitude precedes you. I like that.
Yeah, it completely controls the quality of everything you do physically.
So, the phrase that really stuck out in the literature for me is adopting a really useful attitude.
Yes, that's a huge piece of this.
Right. And I found this fascinating because it kind of bridges the gap between mindset and physiology.
Exactly.
It's not just a mental exercise. Like if you adopt an attitude of warmth, curiosity, or, patience, it physically alters your body language.
It actually engages the parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, really? So it's biological.
Totally. Your breathing changes, the tension in your jaw releases, your shoulders drop.
Wow.
Conversely, if you're walking into a networking event feeling cynical or bored or defensive, your body is loudly broadcasting that hostility.
Even if you're trying to hide it.
Yeah, regardless of the polite words you might force out of your mouth.
And this leads us directly into, well, one of the most famous and maybe most misunderstood metrics in communication.
Ah, yes, the Morabian 55-38-7 rule.
Right. I mean, we've all heard this rule in some corporate seminar or, some self-help article.
Absolutely.
The idea that 55% of your communication is visual body language, 38% is your vocal tone, and only 7% is the actual words.
But what's rarely discussed, I think, is how to actively use that 55% during a first impression.
Yes. Instead of just passively accepting that body language matters, the research details exactly what happens when there's an incongruence between these channels.
And that incongruence is where trust dies.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Think about the biological mechanism at play here. If someone walks up to you and they have their arms tightly crossed, their jaw is clenched, and they have this flat, monotonous tone.
Right, super closed off.
Yeah. And then they say, I am so thrilled to meet you.
Your brain instantly rejects the words.
Completely. The 7% is just discarded.
Yeah.
The visual channel always overrides the verbal channel. We believe the physical evidence because, evolutionarily speaking, language is a very recent invention.
So body language is basically our native tongue.
Exactly.
So then the question becomes, how do we engineer that 55% to signal absolute safety and warmth?
Right.
And the source material breaks down this highly specific 5-step greeting sequence.
I love this sequence.
Me too. It goes open, eye, beam, high, and lean.
It's so actionable.
It really is. And I want to unpack the physiological reasons why these specific actions work, starting with open.
Well, open refers to your physical posture, specifically what behaviorists call ventral fronting.
Ventral fronting. What does that mean exactly?
So your ventral side, your chest, your abdomen, your neck, it houses all your most vital organs.
Okay, right.
In the animal kingdom, exposing these areas is the ultimate sign of vulnerability and trust.
Oh, I see.
So when you approach someone and you deliberately uncross your arms, turn your torso directly toward them, and leave your chest exposed, you are speaking directly to their lizard brain.
You're silently communicating, I am not a threat, I am open to you.
Precisely. It's the exact opposite of, angling your body away or holding a drink across your chest like a shield.
Right, which we all do when we're nervous.
Yeah, it's a natural defense mechanism.
Okay, so that's open. Next is eye, which is about being the absolute first to make eye contact. But the third step, beam, is where I think the research gets incredibly nuanced.
Oh, the smile. Yes.
Yeah, because it differentiates between a generic smile and what the texts call the flooding smile.
The mechanism behind the flooding smile is just brilliant.
Walk us through it.
Well, think about the standard instantaneous smile, like the one a politician flashes to a crowd or a flight attendant gives to the 300th passenger boarding a plane.
Right, it's automatic.
Exactly. It's instantaneous. It doesn't quite reach the eyes. And our brains immediately classify it as a masking behavior.
So it's polite, but it's not personal.
Right, because it's a reflex, not a genuine reaction.
Okay, so how does the flooding smile flip that dynamic?
The instruction is to look at the person's face for a split second. You just pause.
Like take them in for a moment.
Yes. You let your eyes take them in, and then you let a big, warm, responsive smile flood over your face and overflow into your eyes.
So it takes maybe a half-second longer than the reflexive smile?
Yeah, just a slight delay.
But that half-second delay completely changes the neurochemical response in the recipient, doesn't it? Because of, mirror neurons.
Exactly. When you delay the smile, the other person's brain basically calculates that this expression is a specific targeted response to them.
It's not just a generalized mask you're wearing for the whole room.
Right. And that triggers their mirror neurons and often prompts a release of oxytocin.
Wow, oxytocin.
Yeah.
The bonding hormone.
Yeah. It makes the recipient feel incredibly special because the smile was born the moment you saw them, uniquely for them.
That is so powerful. And the research pairs this flooding smile with a visual technique called sticky eyes.
Yes, sticky eyes.
The visual here is to imagine your eyes are glued to your conversation partner's eyes with, like warm taffy.
Right.
Even after they finish speaking, you don't immediately dart your eyes away to scan the room.
Which is what everyone does at a networking event, right? They're always looking for the next person.
It is what everyone does at a networking event, right? They're always looking for the next person.
Yeah.
Exactly. But with this, when you do have to break eye contact, you do it slowly, reluctantly, like you're stretching that imaginary taffy until it breaks.
And doing that projects immense confidence.
With it.
Oh, absolutely. Darting eyes signal anxiety or, like you said, a search for an escape route.
Right.
But sticky eyes signal deep, grounded presence.
Okay, so to amplify that presence even further, there's another technique described in the texts as the big baby pivot.
I love the name of this one.
Right. And the psychology here is deeply rooted in our innate desire for recognition.
Tell us about it.
Well, think about how you react when a tiny, beaming baby crawls up to your feet.
Okay.
You don't just turn your head over your shoulder and casually say, "Oh, hey, baby."
No, you'd never do that.
Right. You turn your entire body. You square your shoulders, you drop down a bit, and you give them 100% of your undivided physical attention.
Because babies demand total engagement.
Exactly. And what the psychologists highlight is that buried deep inside every adult is a big baby who is just, rattling the crib, wailing out for recognition.
That's a stark image, but so true.
We all desperately want to feel important.
Yeah.
So when you give a new acquaintance that exact same full-body pivot, squaring your shoulders and giving them your complete undivided physical attention,
Yeah.
it satisfies that deep psychological craving immediately.
It really does. But, as you're doing all this, managing your posture, your eyes, your smile,
Yeah.
you also have to manage the overflow of nervous energy.
Oh, definitely.
The literature places a huge emphasis on limiting the fidget.
Limiting the fidget.
Yes, and it's not just about looking polished, it's heavily tied to credibility.
How so?
Well, fidgeting is essentially cognitive load overflow. When we're nervous or when our brains are just working too hard to manage a situation, that excess energy leaks out through our hands.
Like touching the face, rubbing the nose, adjusting a collar.
Exactly, or shifting your weight from foot to foot. Observers subconsciously interpret this leakage as either deep insecurity or, worse, deception.
Wow. And the classic historical example always brought up in this context is the 1960 televised presidential debate between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon.
Oh, it's the perfect laboratory demonstration of the visual channel overriding the verbal.
Totally. For the listener who might not know, people who listen to the debate on the radio, strictly processing the verbal arguments and vocal tone, they thought Nixon won, or at least fought to a draw.
Right.
But the millions who watched on television saw a completely different narrative.
They saw Nixon sweating, repeatedly mopping his brow with a handkerchief, shifting his weight, looking visually uncomfortable.
While JFK, meanwhile, was cool, calm, and visually still.
Exactly. That fidgeting triggered a primal distrust in the viewing audience.
And arguably shifted the course of the whole election.
It really might have.
Now, hold on. Let me push back on this for a second. Let's ground this in reality.
Okay, sure.
If I'm walking into a networking event and my internal monologue is, okay, uncross my arms, expose my ventral side, make eye contact first, wait half a second to trigger the flooding smile.
Right.
Apply the sticky eyes, execute the big baby pivot, and whatever you do, do not touch your nose.
That's a lot.
It's too much. The cognitive load of trying to manually puppet my own body is going to be massive.
You'd freeze up.
I'm going to look like a sociopath. How does anyone execute this without looking incredibly robotic and rehearsed?
That is the exact trap, and it's why so many people fail when they try to mechanically apply body language hacks.
Okay, so what's the solution?
You cannot consciously manage all those micro-expressions. There is simply too many muscles in the human face alone.
Right.
This is why the experts developed a subconscious bypass. It's this master key technique called Hello, Old Friend.
Okay, tell us how the bypass works, because I need this.
So instead of trying to manually control your limbs and facial muscles, you basically play a psychological trick on your own brain. You change the source code of your intention. When you're walking up to a stranger, you imagine with absolute vividness that they are a beloved old friend you haven't seen in years.
Oh, wow.
You tell your brain, oh my goodness, it's them. I'm so happy to see them.
So you are manufacturing the really useful attitude we talked about earlier.
Precisely. And because the brain often struggles to differentiate between a vividly imagined scenario and reality.
Your subconscious just takes over the physical execution.
Exactly. Your body naturally softens. Your eyebrows give that subtle, natural lift of recognition.
Your eyes widen slightly, your palms open.
Yes. And that half-second delay in the smile, it happens automatically because you're genuinely taking them in.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Because when you approach someone with the physical markers of an old friend, their mirror neurons fire, they subconsciously pick up on that warmth, and they react to you as if you are a friend.
You just bypass the awkward, guarded stranger phase entirely. I love that so much. It shifts communication from a mechanical performance to a psychological state.
It's much more authentic.
Right. Okay, so we've navigated the first 90 seconds. We've established safety, warmth, presence. The initial greeting is over.
Yep.
But now we have to actually sustain the interaction. We have to, like, bridge the gap between two separate, distinct individuals.
Which brings us to the physics of social synchronization.
Synchronization. How do two people get on the same wavelength?
Well, we tend to rely on what the research calls rapport by chance.
Right. Rapport by chance is what most of us do.
Yeah.
You're talking to a stranger. The conversation is polite but a bit stiff, and you're mentally just casting about for a lifeline.
Praying for common ground.
Exactly. And then suddenly you find out you both collect, I don't know, vintage typewriters, or you both grew up in the same obscure neighborhood in Chicago, or you share an irrational love for the same terrible sports team.
And boom.
The walls instantly come down. You relax. You're part of the same tribe.
But relying on chance is a terrible strategy if you want to consistently build influence.
Right. Because what if you don't have anything obvious in common?
Exactly. Top communicators don't wait for the dice to roll in their favor. They practice rapport by design.
Rapport by design.
Yes. They understand this fundamental truth of human nature. We naturally like, trust, and feel safe around people who are like us.
The metaphor I really like to use for this is acoustic resonance.
Oh, yeah. Explain that.
So if you take two tuning forks designed to vibrate at the same frequency, and you strike one so it begins to hum,
Okay.
and then you bring it close to the second fork, the second one will begin to vibrate and hum completely on its own.
Just from being near the first one.
Right. It calibrates to the energy in its environment. So when we synchronize our behavior with someone else, we're essentially acting as that tuning fork, matching their frequency until a natural resonance occurs.
That's a perfect analogy. And you begin this calibration by mirroring their physical state and their vocal pacing.
Like pacing and leading.
Exactly. If the person you are speaking with is leaning back, relaxed, maybe with a leg crossed, and they have a slow cadence to their speech,
Yeah.
and you are leaning forward, tightly wound, speaking at a rapid-fire pace.
You're creating acoustic dissonance.
Yes. Their brain registers you as other. So to build rapport, you subtly cross your leg, you lean back, you slow your tempo to match theirs.
And the source material actually recounts this brilliant real-world application of this involving a lawyer at a ski club.
Oh, right, the chalet story.
Yeah. So he was in the chalet, sitting near a neighbor he knew only in passing. And the lawyer decided to test this synchronization theory.
What did she do?
He deliberately took on the neighbor's overall posture. Yeah, he didn't mimic him like a mime that's offensive and super obvious.
Right, don't copy their every move.
Exactly. But he mirrored the general physical attitude. When the neighbor spoke quickly, the lawyer spoke quickly. When the neighbor used expansive hand gestures, the lawyer broadened his gestures.
And the result?
Within minutes, the neighbor felt such a profound subconscious connection that he spontaneously invited the lawyer, who was essentially a stranger, to his private box at a hockey game.
Wow.
The neighbor couldn't articulate why. His brain was just screaming, "I like this guy. He gets me."
It works because, from the time we're infants, synchronization is tied to survival.
Right.
We synchronize our breathing and heart rates with our caregivers. We are biologically hardwired to feel secure around people who reflect our physical and vocal patterns.
But the research actually takes this resonance a step deeper, right?
Yeah.
Moving beyond just body language
Yeah.
and into how we literally perceive reality.
Ah, yes, the sensory preferences, the VAK framework.
I found this to be one of the most illuminating concepts in the entire stack of texts today,
Why is that?
because it finally explained a recurring conflict in my own life.
Oh, really? Do tell.
For years, I would clash with a former business partner. I would constantly say things like, "Let's map out how this looks," or "I can't quite picture the end goal here."
Very visual language.
Exactly. And she would respond with, "I just don't feel like we have a handle on this," or "The structure doesn't feel solid."
Okay, kinesthetic.
Right. We were both trying to solve the exact same problem, but we were frustrating each other immensely. It turns out we were literally speaking different sensory dialects.
You're touching on neurolinguistics here.
Break that down for us.
The theory is that while we all use all our senses, most individuals have a primary modality through which they process the world. Visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, VAK.
Break down the mechanics of those three modalities, because once you know what to listen for, it's honestly like seeing the Matrix.
Let's start with visual processors.
Yeah.
These individuals experience the world primarily as a series of mental images.
Okay.
Because the brain can flash pictures incredibly fast, much faster than it can process sound or emotion. Visuals tend to speak rapidly.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're basically trying to keep up with the movie playing in their heads. They often gesture upwards, and they tend to dress impeccably because visual aesthetics matter deeply to them.
And linguistically, they literally tell you how they think. They use visual verbs.
Exactly.
They say, I see what you mean, or let's shed some light on this, or that looks good to me.
Precisely. Then you have the auditory processors. These people filter the world through sound and rhythm.
Okay, so how do they behave?
They tend to have very expressive melodic voices. They might subtly tilt their head when listening, presenting an ear toward you like they're tuning a dial to catch a frequency.
That's such a specific detail, and their vocabulary is entirely sound-based, right?
Yep. They'll say things like, that sounds great, or we're on the same wavelength, or that rings a bell, or let's orchestrate a plan.
And finally, the kinesthetic processors. These are the touch and feel individuals. They process information through physical sensation and emotional resonance.
Now, neurologically, it takes a fraction of a second longer to process a gut feeling than it does to see a mental image.
Which explains their pacing.
Exactly. Consequently, kinesthetics tend to speak much slower. They pause, they leave space between their words, and they prioritize physical comfort in their clothing over just aesthetics.
And their language reflects that tactile reality.
Give some examples.
They'll say, I feel good about this, or let's get a handle on the situation, or that's a heavy concept, or I'm trying to grasp the meaning.
Perfect examples. So, how do we weaponize this knowledge to build rapport?
Right.
We use what the researchers call anatomically correct empathizers.
Anatomically correct empathizers. It's basically about matching the verb to the sensory preference, right? If my kinesthetic business partner says, I just can't grasp the direction of this project,
Yeah.
and I reply with my natural visual dialect, saying, well, let me show you the roadmap so you can see the big picture.
You're creating dissonance.
Right. Her brain translates the words logically, but it doesn't connect on a gut level. It's the cognitive equivalent of speaking Spanish to someone who speaks French.
They might catch the gist, but they don't feel at home.
But if I intentionally adapt my language and reply, I know it feels disjointed right now. Let's see if we can build a solid foundation so you can get a grip on the scope.
You have bypassed the logical filter.
I've spoken directly to her subconscious reality. We've synchronized on a neurological level.
But to do that, it requires deep, active listening. You have to listen past the subject matter to the actual verbs they are choosing.
Okay, so we've established physiological safety. We're mirroring their posture and tempo. We've identified their sensory dialect.
We're totally synced up.
But eventually, we have to navigate the actual substance of the conversation. We have to engage in small talk.
Small talk. Universally maligned.
People hate it.
They do. People view it as shallow, fake, or just a waste of time. They want to skip the weather and dive straight into deep philosophical discussions or maybe aggressive business pitches.
But the sociologists emphasize that small talk is the crucial gateway to deep connection.
It is. You cannot play a symphony without first tuning the instruments.
Small talk is the tuning phase.
Exactly. It calibrates the social dynamic.
And the most critical rule of that tuning phase is matching the mood. Conversation is about music, not just lyrics.
Right.
If you bring the wrong energy to the interaction, the words don't even matter.
The concept here is pacing someone's state. If a colleague is having a slow, lethargic, difficult day, their internal metronome is set to a slow adagio.
Okay.
If you bounce into their office with a massive, hyper-energetic grin, speaking at a frantic allegro pace, you're going to trigger a threat response.
Because your energy is too chaotic for their depleted state.
Yes.
There's a perfect illustration of this in the texts regarding a Mensa convention.
Oh, the elevator story.
The author recounts stepping into a slow-moving elevator packed with tired, quiet, highly introverted geniuses.
The mood in the elevator was silent, heavy, and extremely low energy.
Right. But the author bursts through the doors, overflowing with hyper-enthusiasm, practically shouting about how incredibly slow the elevator is, expecting them to all join in the joke.
And instead, they stared at her like she was an invading species.
Exactly. It was a massive physiological mismatch. Yeah. Her energy demanded a response they did not have the resources to give.
If she had read the room.
Slumped her shoulders a bit, let out a slow sigh, and quietly murmured, Wow, this elevator takes forever.
They would have nodded in solidarity.
You would have paced their state. You have to match the mood to earn the right to eventually change the mood.
But getting the conversation started, especially with strangers, requires overcoming that initial barrier of approach.
And the research catalogs several highly effective opening devices designed to lower this barrier.
The most actionable one is probably the what's it.
The what's it. I love the psychology of this because it shifts the burden of effort.
Explain what it is.
The what's it is essentially a wearable conversation starter. It's an unusual item you wear or carry specifically to give other people a low-risk excuse to approach you.
It acts as a social gift.
A social gift, exactly.
Walking up to a stranger and introducing yourself requires a high degree of vulnerability. The what's it lowers the cost of entry.
The classic example provided in the text is a gentleman who always carried a set of intricate Greek worry beads.
It's so simple.
It really is. Anyone who wants to network with him but maybe doesn't have a clever opening line can simply point to his hand and say, "Excuse me, I have to ask, what are those?"
It works for a unique lapel pin, a striking piece of vintage jewelry, or a wildly colorful tie.
You are doing the hard work of breaking the ice for them.
Conversely, if you spot someone else you want to speak with, you become the detective looking for their what's it.
But what if they don't have one?
If they don't have one, the literature suggests the who's that technique, which is basically leveraging the host of the event for a warm introduction.
And if the host is unavailable?
You deploy the eavesdrop-in strategy.
Now, eavesdropping in sounds socially aggressive, almost rude.
It sounds terrible, frankly.
Right. But the mechanics of group dynamics actually support it. You stand near a group you want to join, you adopt an open posture, you actively listen to the flow of their conversation.
And when a natural pause occurs,
You step forward with a warm smile and say, "Excuse me, I couldn't help but overhear you talking about the new zoning laws."
and while there might be a microsecond of surprise,
The group will almost universally expand to welcome you in, provided your attitude and body language are non-threatening.
but initiating the conversation is only half the battle. Sustaining the flow without it feeling like an interrogation requires avoiding what the researchers call the naked city or the naked introduction.
This is all about the cognitive labor of conversation.
Right.
When you are making small talk, every question and answer requires a little bit of mental work.
Yeah.
If I ask you, "Where are you from?" and you simply reply, "Chicago,"
I have just dropped a naked city.
it's a conversational dead end.
Completely.
You force me to do all the heavy lifting to keep the interaction alive. I have
Yeah.
to scramble, search my brain, and awkwardly follow up with, how are the winters there?"
Top communicators never drop a naked name. They always provide conversational bait to make it incredibly easy for the other person to respond.
So instead of just saying Chicago,
You embed multiple hooks into your answer. Like, I'm from Chicago. The winters are absolutely brutal, but the summer food festivals make the freezing cold totally worth it.
brilliant. Now, without any cognitive strain at all, I can ask you about extreme weather, I can ask you about your favorite food, or I can ask you about festivals.
You've given me a menu of options.
And this principle applies equal when introducing two other people. Don't leave them naked.
Right, don't just say, John, meet Susan.
Say, "John, meet Susan." Susan just got back from an incredible photography trip to Bali, and John is an avid scuba diver.
You've instantly baited the hook for both of them, virtually guaranteeing a flowing conversation.
Okay, so once that conversation is flowing, the masters of human engineering employ a visualization technique called the swiveling spotlight.
Imagine a massive theatrical spotlight hanging over the conversation.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Whenever you are speaking, that spotlight is glaring down on you. The objective is to swivel that spotlight off of yourself and back onto the other person as rapidly and smoothly as possible.
And you do that by acting as a word detective. You don't just wait for your turn to speak. You listen with intense focus for any slip of the tongue, any unusual noun, or any tangent they mention.
And you pivot the spotlight onto that.
Give us an example.
If a colleague says, yeah, I was finalizing the Q3 report, but I lost a day because I had to deal with a flooded basement.
You don't ask about the Q3 report.
Exactly. Anyone can ask about the report. You swivel the spotlight to the anomaly. You ask, oh no, your basement flooded. How much damage was there?
You validate their personal experience over the mundane facts.
Yes.
But let me present a very real scenario here. I'm trying to be a word detective. I'm keeping the spotlight on them. But suddenly my mind completely blanks.
It happens to the best of us.
The cognitive well runs dry. They finish a sentence, the silence stretches out, the panic sets in, and I have absolutely no idea what to say next.
It's a terrifying feeling.
What is the emergency ripcord to prevent the conversation from just dying?
The emergency ripcord is a linguistic tool called parroting, and its brilliance lies in its absolute simplicity. It requires zero creative thought.
How does it work?
Think of conversation as a rhythmic game of tennis. When a heavy serve comes your way and you don't know how to craft a clever return, you simply volley the ball back to keep the rally alive.
Okay.
You do this by repeating the last 2 or 3 words the person just said, using a sympathetic, questioning tone.
Walk me through how this sounds in practice. Let's role play it.
Let's say your conversation partner says, "I've been completely exhausted this week because we decided to rip out the kitchen and renovate."
And my mind goes blank.
Instead of panicking, you isolate the last phrase and softly reflect it back as a question. Rip out the kitchen.
Just rip out the kitchen.
Yes. And you let the silence hang. Psychologically, echoing those exact words signals to their brain that you are listening intently.
It shows you absorb their statement.
Exactly. And you are inviting them to elaborate. Because human beings abhor a vacuum, and because they are the subject matter experts on their own lives, they will inevitably fill that space.
They'll say, yeah, we are tearing out all the old cabinets, laying down custom tile, and trying to act as our own contractors.
It's like magic. You literally just say, "custom tile," and they will keep talking for another 5 minutes.
It completely relieves the pressure of having to be witty or insightful.
It really does.
Okay, so we've broken the ice, we're matching moves, we're providing conversational bait, and we're parroting when we get stuck.
We're doing great.
How do we transition from polite, sustained small talk to genuine influence and deep connection?
Well, this transition requires confronting a somewhat humbling biological reality about human nature.
Okay, brace me.
The research indicates that the default mode network of the human brain is inherently self-referential.
What does that mean in plain English?
When humans are not actively engaged in solving a specific external problem, they spend approximately 95% of their internal cognitive energy thinking about themselves.
95%. We are all basically just walking around, starring in our own internal documentary films, narrating our own worries, our own goals, our own insecurities.
Exactly. We are the center of our own universe. Yeah. Therefore, if you want to influence someone, you cannot frame the interaction around what you want or what you think.
You have to step into their movie.
Right. To arouse an eager want in someone else, you have to frame the world around their interests.
And the researchers provide a specific linguistic hack for this, which they call communication, spelled with a capital Y-O-U.
It's the disciplined practice of starting your sentences with the word you instead of the word I.
It sounds like a minor grammatical shift, honestly.
It does, but it has profound psychological implications. When you say, "I think this is a great software solution for your team," you are centering your own ego.
Right, because I'm talking about what I think.
And the listener's brain has to translate that statement. Okay, they think it's good, but what does that mean for me? You are forcing them to do translation work.
But if I use communication, I bypass the translation filter entirely.
Yeah.
I say, you are going to see a massive reduction in processing time when your team implements this software.
See the difference? You have directly targeted their self-interest. You push their pride button.
Even in casual compliments, right? Instead of saying, "I love your new jacket," which is really about my taste, I say, "You look fantastic in that new jacket."
It centers them completely.
And speaking of compliments, we need to dive into the distinction between genuine praise and cheap flattery.
This is crucial.
Because the desire to be liked often drives us to flatter people, but the research makes a sharp, unyielding distinction between the two.
Flattery is shallow. It's often manipulative. It's telling someone what you want them to hear to extract a benefit.
And the human radar for insincerity is incredibly highly tuned. We see right through it.
We really do. Praise, on the other hand, is specific, observant, and rooted in reality.
But even genuine praise delivered face-to-face can sometimes feel awkward.
True. The recipient might feel compelled to deflect it or question your motives.
This is why the experts recommend a strategy called carrier pigeon kudos.
I was absolutely fascinated by this concept because it leverages the power of social validation.
Explain how a carrier pigeon kudo works.
Instead of complimenting someone directly, you become the conduit for third-party praise. You become the person who constantly delivers good news heard through the grapevine.
The mechanism of third-party validation is incredibly powerful.
It is. If you walk up to a colleague, let's call her Jane, and say, "Jane, you are brilliant." She might appreciate it, but she might also wonder if you need a favor.
Right.
But if you fly over to Jane, like a carrier pigeon, and say, Jane, I was just speaking with the executive VP, and he was absolutely raving about the structural analysis in your last presentation.
He said it was the clearest data he's seen all year.
The impact is magnified tenfold because you have no ulterior motive in passing along someone else's praise. It registers as absolute objective truth.
And the brilliant byproduct is that psychologically, Jane associates that incredible dopamine hit with you.
You become permanently associated with good feelings and elevated status.
But how do we apply these principles of connection not just to colleagues or acquaintances, but to the people closest to us?
Like our spouses, family members, old friends.
Yeah, because familiarity breeds a kind of conversational laziness. We stop observing them.
For our closest loved ones, the source material suggests a profound, if somewhat starkly named, exercise called the tombstone game.
It sounds a bit morbid.
It does, but it is an exercise in profound empathy. The premise is to ask your loved one in a quiet, intimate moment what they would want written on their tombstone.
Or, I guess less dramatically, how they most want to be remembered at the end of their life.
What is the single core quality or achievement they're most deeply proud of?
You're asking them to articulate their idealized self-image.
Exactly. Do they view themselves primarily as the fiercely loyal protector of the family? The fearless creative adventurer?
Or the brilliant, uncompromising intellectual. The endlessly compassionate caregiver.
Right, because once you understand that core identity, you unlock the ability to provide the most profound validation possible.
You target your sincere praise directly at that specific self-image.
If your husband prides himself on being an unpredictable, exciting adventurer, telling him he is so stable and reliable might logically be a compliment.
But emotionally, it feels like a slight. It contradicts his internal movie.
But if you tell him you constantly bring such incredible excitement and color into my life, you hit him straight in the soul.
You're saying, I see exactly who you are trying to be, and I validate that you are succeeding.
That is the deepest form of love and connection. It's identity-level praise.
And as we provide that identity-level validation, the relationship naturally deepens.
In fact, the research actually categorizes the progression of intimacy into 4 distinct levels of conversation.
Understanding these levels allows you to consciously measure and advance a relationship, right?
Yes. Walk us through the 4 levels.
Okay, level 1 is cliches.
Yeah.
This is the realm of strangers and brief encounters. How are you? Fine. Nice weather today.
It is entirely surface-level data exchange used merely to acknowledge existence.
Right. Then level 2 moves into facts. We've had 3 straight days of rain. The market is down 200 points.
You are sharing objective reality, but there is no personal risk involved.
Level 3 is where vulnerability begins. This is the level of feelings and opinions.
Okay, like what?
Like, I absolutely love this rain. It makes me feel so grounded. Or, I'm really worried about the market volatility. You're now exposing your internal state to the other person.
And the highest level, level 4, is the realm of we statements. It moves from I and you to us.
If it keeps raining, we should build a fire and stay in. Or we're going to have to adjust our investment strategy if this volatility keeps up.
We statements indicate a shared reality. They signal that you are now a unit facing the world together.
And here's where the human engineering aspect offers a brilliant shortcut. The literature outlines a technique called the premature we.
Oh, this is a great hack.
If you want to rapidly accelerate rapport with a new acquaintance, a prospective client, or a colleague, you can intentionally jumpstart intimacy by skipping the cliches and facts and seeding your conversation with we and us prematurely.
It creates a powerful neurochemical illusion of in-group status.
It fosters a subliminal feeling of you and me against the cold world.
If you are pitching a client, instead of framing it as an adversarial transaction by saying, I think my software can fix your company's latency issues,
you deploy the premature we. You say, I think we're going to uncover some incredible efficiencies once we get this implemented.
Exactly. The brain subconsciously registers the linguistic marker of tribal unity. You are no longer a vendor, you are a partner.
But as much as we want to build that togetherness and find common ground, the researchers offered a massive warning about how we handle shared interests.
They call it kill the quick, me too.
And I have to confess, this is the hardest habit for me to break personally.
It requires immense discipline because it goes against our immediate dopamine-driven instincts.
Right. If I'm talking to someone and they mention they are obsessed with restoring vintage motorcycles, And I also happen to restore vintage motorcycles.
Your immediate instinct is to jump in.
My overwhelming instinct is to interrupt and shout, "Me too!" I have a '74 Honda in my garage right now. I want the instant gratification of that shared connection.
But the data shows that top communicators ruthlessly bite their tongues in these moments.
My.
We have to analyze what is actually happening psychologically when you shout, "Me too." You think you are building a bridge, but what you are actually doing is stealing the swiveling spotlight.
Oh.
They were having a moment of passion, sharing their unique interests, and you hijack the narrative to make it about you. You turn their movie into your movie.
So the strategy is to withhold the similarity. You let them enjoy the spotlight.
You ask them questions. What drew you to motorcycles? What's the hardest part of a restoration?
You let them empty their tank of enthusiasm.
And then, perhaps 20 minutes later, or even the next day, you casually drop into conversation that you also ride.
The impact of that delayed reveal is seismic.
Really is.
When they realize you shared this intense commonality, but you had the grace and the self-restraint to let them shine first, it blows them away.
It projects supreme confidence. It says, I don't need to desperately grasp for connection or validate my own ego. I'm secure enough to let you have the stage.
I will respect you immensely for it. It's all about managing the ego.
Right.
But let's be realistic here. We've painted a picture of perfectly synchronized body language, seamless small talk, and brilliantly timed empathy.
But life isn't perfect.
Exactly. What happens when the social adapter fails? People drop glasses, they misread the room, they say the wrong thing, and more importantly, they genuinely get angry.
How do the masters handle the messy, ugly reality of conflict and social bloopers?
The transition from building connection to preserving it during adversity is the ultimate test of these skills.
And the very first rule of navigating awkwardness is absolute grace. The maxim is, see no bloopers, hear no bloopers.
Big winners completely ignore the minor spills, the verbal slips, and the physical gaffes of others.
If you are at a dinner and someone knocks over a water glass, or they completely mispronounce a common word, or their voice cracks embarrassingly,
The amateur communicator gasps, or points it out, or tries to make a joke about it to lighten the mood.
but drawing attention to it, even playfully, strips the person of their dignity.
Top communicators possess the incredible discipline to act as if the physical laws of the universe simply did not register the mistake.
They don't break eye contact, they don't miss a beat, they allow the person to silently recover their composure.
And if a disruption is unavoidable, say a waiter drops a tray of dishes, completely derailing the story someone was telling, the master communicator acts as the conversational lifeguard.
They use a technique called lend a helping tongue.
Yes. Once the chaos subsides and the shattered plates are cleared, the silence usually hangs awkwardly, and the storyteller feels foolish trying to restart.
You lean forward, lock eyes with them, and say, please, you have to get back to your story. You were just saying that the client walked in and...
You rescue their narrative. It makes them feel incredibly valued. You prioritize their voice over the disruption.
But preserving dignity during a spilled drink is easy compared to navigating true conflict.
Right. Whether it's a domestic fight with a spouse or a high-stakes disagreement with a business partner, the texts synthesize decades of conflict resolution strategies into one universal first step.
Empty their tanks.
Empty their tanks.
Yeah.
This is where we have to understand the neurobiology of anger.
When someone is furious, they are experiencing an amygdala hijack. Their brain is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. The logical prefrontal cortex is effectively offline.
The metaphor of the tank is vital here. Imagine their brain as a gas tank pressurized and filled to the brim with toxic noise, grievances, and emotional pain.
You cannot pump new ideas, logical defenses, or rational compromises into a tank that is already full.
A pressure will just blow it back in your face.
Exactly. The psychological refractory period requires that the emotion must burn out before logic can enter.
To empty the tank, you must do the hardest thing possible. You must stay entirely silent.
You let them complain, yell, vent, and exhaust their arsenal until the very last drop of their argument spills out. You do not interrupt. You do not defend your intentions.
You endure the storm.
And once the storm breaks, once the tank is finally empty, how do you respond?
Because all the modern corporate HR training tells us that our immediate instinct should be to paraphrase what they said.
We are taught to say, so what I'm hearing you say is, or if I understand you correctly, you feel.
And the behavioral data warns heavily against paraphrasing in heated emotional moments.
Paraphrasing is toxic during a fight. Think about how it lands. When you summarize their deeply felt grievance in your own words, the angry person's brain instantly perceives it as a distortion.
They hear a correction. Their internal monologue says, no, that's not what I said. You're twisting my words. You aren't listening.
It instantly refills their tank with fresh anger.
So if paraphrasing triggers the correction reflex, what is the alternative?
You must mirror. You repeat their exact words back to them, verbatim.
Wait, let me stop you there. Because earlier, in the small talk section, we talked about parroting to keep a conversation going.
Right.
Repeating the last 3 words as a question, custom tile, is mirroring in a fight the exact same linguistic tool.
That is a crucial distinction to make. They use similar mechanics, but the application and the gravity are entirely different.
How so?
Parroting in small talk is a light, inquisitive repetition of just the last few words to prompt them to keep chatting. It's an invitation.
Okay.
Mirroring in an argument is heavy, grounded, and comprehensive. It is the repetition of their entire core grievance to provide absolute, undeniable psychological validation.
Let's role play this so the distinction is crystal clear. Let's say we are business partners. I am furious. The tank is full.
Go for it.
I come to you and say, I am so incredibly frustrated because you constantly make huge financial decisions without ever consulting me, and it makes me feel completely marginalized in my own company.
If I were to paraphrase, I might say, so you're upset that I don't communicate well regarding the budget?
That minimizes my pain. It sparks a new fight.
But if I mirror, I look you in the eye, I adopt a serious, grounded tone, and I say, you are incredibly frustrated because I make huge financial decisions without consulting you, and it makes you feel completely marginalized in your own company.
Wow. Hearing you say my exact words back to me, it completely disarms the fight. I can't argue with you because you're agreeing with my reality.
You are proving with 100% accuracy that I have been heard.
And then what's the follow-up?
After mirroring the exact words, I ask, did I get it right? And is there more?
Is there more? That is the ultimate pressure release valve. You are literally inviting me to keep venting if a secondary grievance is hiding behind the primary one.
It drains any residual fight right out of the system.
Only when they say, yes, you got it, and no, there isn't more, are they physiologically ready to hear a solution.
And you begin that resolution phase using what Abraham Lincoln referred to as the drop of honey.
Lincoln famously observed, a drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall.
No matter how justified you feel in your defense, you must begin your response in a friendly, empathetic way.
And the research pairs this drop of honey with a technique called the secret of Socrates.
Socrates didn't batter his opponents with arguments. He asked a series of carefully calibrated questions that his opponent had no choice but to agree with.
It's a method of changing the opponent's physiological state through agreement. When you get someone saying yes, yes, right at the beginning of a negotiation or a disagreement, you are forcing their body to nod.
You are forcing their vocal cords to produce an affirmative sound. It is incredibly difficult for the brain to maintain a state of furious hostility when the body is physically performing the actions of agreement.
You find the unarguable common ground immediately. Let's say a couple is arguing fiercely over how to discipline a teenager.
The tank is emptied, the mirroring is done.
You start the Socratic sequence. We both want our son to grow up a responsible man.
Yes.
And we both want to reduce the screaming matches in this house.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yes.
And we both agree that we need to present a united front, right?
Yes. You have taken 2 adversaries shouting across a chasm, and you have systematically walked them over the bridge until they are standing side by side, collaborating on the same problem. It's brilliant.
It is the pinnacle of human engineering. But everything we have discussed so far, the synchronized posture, the flooding smiles, the eye contact, the mirroring relies heavily on the premise that we are in the same physical room.
Which brings us to the final frontier. How do we apply these deeply biological visual rules of connection when we are stripped of our greatest asset?
Remote connection.
Exactly. What happens when we are communicating remotely? Over the phone or on a conference call where the video is turned off, we suddenly lose that 55% visual advantage entirely. We are flying blind.
It is a massive handicap. But the acoustical research reveals that it is actually worse than just losing the visual channel. The technology itself degrades the signal.
Voices lose approximately 30% of their emotional energy when compressed and transmitted over phone lines or digital audio channels.
The frequencies literally get flattened out.
So if you are sitting at your desk feeling a normal baseline level of engagement, you sound bored to the person on the other end.
And if you are feeling slightly tired, you sound like you are clinically depressed or completely apathetic.
So to project a baseline level of normal enthusiasm, you have to consciously overcompensate. You have to punch up your vocal energy by 30% just to break even.
And more importantly, you have to translate your invisible body language into sound. The psychologists call these talking gestures.
Because they can't see the feedback loop. In person, if you tell me a story, I can remain totally silent but show you I'm engaged by widening my eyes, nodding my head, and smiling.
The speaker feels supported. On the phone, silence is a void. Silence means the call dropped, or worse, that I'm checking my email.
So you have to verbalize the nod. You have to insert non-intrusive auditory feedback. I hear you.
Right. And you have to articulate your facial expressions. If they tell you something shocking, you can't just drop your jaw. You have to say, "What a surprise." Or, "I'm genuinely stunned by that."
You're painting the visual picture with your words.
And there is one specific auditory tool that the research insists we overuse on the phone to build remote closeness: the caller's name.
The human brain's reticular activating system is uniquely tuned to the sound of our own name. In a crowded, noisy room, you might hear nothing but static. But if someone whispers your name 10 feet away, your brain snaps to attention.
When we are face-to-face, I can make eye contact to silently pull your wandering attention back to me. On the phone, where attention is constantly fractured by glowing screens and open tabs, using their name is the audio equivalent of locking eyes.
It acts as a verbal caress. It anchors them. I see exactly what the problem is, Sarah. That's a brilliant pivot, David.
It pierces through the digital distraction and recreates the intimacy that the medium robs from you.
And this intentionality extends even to when we aren't actively speaking to them. The texts highlight the neglected art of asynchronous friction reduction specifically, voicemail mastery.
I know for the first decade of my career, I recorded one generic greeting: "Hi, you've reached me, leave a message," and I never touched it again. But the true masters update their outgoing message daily.
It takes 10 seconds, but the psychological impact on the caller is immense. If a client calls and hears, "Hi, it's Tuesday the 14th. I am locked in strategy sessions until 3:00 p.m., but I will be returning calls immediately after," they don't feel ignored.
They feel managed. It projects an image of someone who is incredibly conscientious, highly organized, and deeply respectful of other people's time.
And when the roles are reversed, and you are leaving a voicemail for someone else, the rule is never to just say, "Hey, it's me, call me back."
You have to manufacture curiosity. You leave what the experts call a cliffhanger message.
Hey, John, I finally cracked the code on that supply chain issue we were arguing about last week. Call me back when you have 5 minutes. I want to see what you think of the solution.
You are providing an irresistible, dopamine-driven reason to return the call. You make the interaction engaging before it even begins.
Wow. Okay. We've covered an immense amount of psychological terrain today on this deep dive. We have essentially mapped the unmapped territory of human interaction. Let's synthesize the toolkit we've extracted from this century of data.
We started at the absolute beginning, the neurological reality of the first 90 seconds. We learned that the 55-38-7 rule dictates that our visual signals override our words, which means we must adopt a really useful attitude to physically broadcast warmth.
We operationalized that with a greeting sequence. Ventral fronting to stay open, being the first to give eye contact, delaying the beam to create a flooding smile that triggers oxytocin, and employing sticky eyes in the big baby pivot to satisfy the deep human craving for recognition.
And we bypassed the robotic cognitive load of managing all those microexpressions by tricking our own brains with the "hello, old friend" technique.
From there, we explored the physics of acoustic resonance rapport by design. We synchronized our posture and our pacing.
We identified whether our counterparts processed reality as visuals, auditories, or kinesthetics, and we matched their verbs using anatomically correct empathizers to bypass their logical filters and speak directly to their subconscious.
Then we tuned the instrument with small talk. We learned to pace their emotional state, whether it was an allegro high or an adagio low. We lowered the barrier to entry with a "what's it?"
And we eliminated the cognitive labor of conversation by never dropping a naked city, always providing conversational bait. We used the swiveling spotlight to become a word detective, and when our minds blanked, we parroted their last few words to gracefully keep the volley alive.
We deepen those connections by acknowledging that humans spend 95% of their time focused on themselves. We used communication to speak directly to their ego.
We built social capital with carrier pigeon kudos. And for our deepest relationships, we played the tombstone game to offer identity-level validation.
We accelerated intimacy with the premature we, while fiercely biting our tongues to kill the quick me too, so we wouldn't steal their spotlight.
And finally, we confronted the messy reality of conflict. We preserved dignity by ignoring the bloopers and lending a helping tongue. When the tank of anger was full, we sat in silence until it emptied.
We fiercely avoided the correction reflex of paraphrasing, and instead mirrored their exact words to provide absolute validation before using the Socratic drop of honey to guide them to a unified yes.
And we pushed all of this through the digital divide by amplifying our energy 30%, using talking gestures, and wielding their name as the ultimate anchor of attention.
It is a profound, comprehensive operating system for human connection. But if there is a single unified theory that binds all of this source material together, it is a fundamental shift in objective.
Most people walk into a room desperately trying to prove that they're the most interesting person there.
The data conclusively proves that the path to influence, success, and deep connection is not about being interesting. It is about being the most interested.
It requires the discipline and the empathy to step entirely out of your own internal movie and step fully into theirs.
It's an outward orientation of the soul. Which leads me to a final thought for you, the listener, to carry with you.
The 95% rule.
Exactly. We discussed the neurological reality that, when left to our own devices, the default mode network of our brain dictates that we spend 95% of our time thinking about ourselves, our career trajectory, our outfit, our lingering resentments, our grocery list.
It's natural.
Think deeply about that 95% ratio. What would happen to the trajectory of your life, to the ceiling of your career, and to the depth of your relationships if, starting tomorrow morning, you decided to completely invert that ratio?
What a question.
What if you spent 95% of your social energy fiercely, intensely, and unapologetically focused on the internal world of the person standing right in front of you?
That is the moment the friction disappears. That is where the magic happens.
It really is. The invisible rules of the road are out there. The signals are broadcasting loud and clear. You just have to be willing to look up from your own dashboard and read them.